how people make decisions is really important, and understanding how they do it is really important. So this document here is something from it's actually from Tony Robbins. So I'm not going to take credit for putting this together, but it really is part of something that I go over time and time and time again just to refresh myself. And I think at the end of the day, we are in a sales world. We are in a closing game. So it's really important that we understand how people make decisions, especially when we're talking to agents, or we're direct to landlords, or whatever it might be. Really, really important that we understand how people make decisions. And so this is from a program called Master and Influence by Tony Robbins. If you have never listened to it before, there's plenty of YouTube videos on it, but I would recommend buying the program. It's and just listening to it on repeat in the car and as you're going about your daily spare time in the gym, things like that, because it is just something you should listen over and over and over again. So, but this is what I wanted to sort of go through today. So people they have these things called meta programs, and it's basically how they will how we identify what their meta program is, and then it helps us to be able to sell. So by the end of it, hopefully you'll understand a bit more about what I'm going on about. But the worst salesperson is somebody that just thinks that, well, if I give a good sales pitch and I list all the benefits of my, service, then they will automatically buy. That's not always true, because you more than likely are just getting lucky, if that is what you think, on the deals that you do close, because people close in different ways, or more than likely you're leaving a lot of money on the table by not being able to close the right people. So people move towards or away from something. Fairly straightforward. You've probably heard this quite a lot, but people who are what I would class in kind of the tier 3, which I would say are kind of motivated individuals, more than likely entrepreneurs. They are, they typically are in the higher tiers of the wealth strategy. They tend to work towards something, so they're motivated by a desire or pleasure. Whereas people in tier 1 will more than likely be moving away from pain, and they struggle to make decisions unless they're really pushed. So a good example would be someone would motivate me more by saying, if you do this, you will potentially make £1 million, rather than if you the pain of not doing this would be that you might not be able to go on those family holidays that you want to go on, or whatever it might be. So you've got to understand that people move either towards a product or away from a product. And again, you've got to be able to ask good questions to be able to find out where they're at. So for a landlord, for example, are they moving towards more net income, having having more cash flow, etc., or are they moving away from a pain of hassling tenants, properties getting trashed, losing money? So there's two different sides of the coins. You have to understand where your landlord sits, and then you will understand which way and how to talk to them properly. So number 1, moving towards or away. Number 2, they have an internal or external frame of reference. So they either look to themselves to make decisions, or they look to external people to make decisions. We all will fully understand that, fairly straightforward. So you're either an internal person or an external person. I am very much an internal person. I will make my own decisions. I look to myself for my own decisions, whereas a lot of, I'm trying to think of a good example, but probably my brother, to an extent, very much an external person. He will always be asking me, what should we do? How, and asking externally. There may be an element of that hierarchy and things like that. Maybe just wants that confidence as well, but he's definitely an external rather than internal. My wife's probably more external. So
my brother's just the same, exactly the same.
Yes. It's like chalk and cheese, but this is how we're built, right? But so there's no point if we're speaking to a landlord that is an external person and you're trying to get them to make a decision, they might not be able to make that decision themselves because that's not the way they operate. Okay, so you have to understand that, you know. And again, it comes down to, you know, clever questions. And this is where you kind of question, opening these boxes as you're speaking to people. You know, this could go as well for, like, say, when you're on the phone to an estate agent, you know, are they an internal or external person? You know, will they go ahead and make decisions for themselves, or do they always need to go and seek authority? Now, you could technically have an internal person working for somebody in an estate agent and they don't have the authority to make the decision. But most internal people will make the decision and live with the consequences afterwards. So, you know, asking good questions to find out whether they are or aren't, you know, is a good way. Number 3, possibility or a necessity. So a bit like number 1, where we're kind of moving towards or away something. So some people are motivated by the possibility of a situation or a service. Others are motivated by seeing the necessity of buying or changing. So a good example of this is probably a Ferrari, right? So definitely 100%, I'd be motivated by the possibility of driving a Ferrari and owning a Ferrari. But is it a necessity for me? No. But, you know, if I was needing to get my kids to school 45 minutes away, I need to get a car. That is a necessity. And therefore, you know, you are buying based on necessity rather than, you know, a possibility of something you want. So when you're speaking to, say, you know, if you were, for example, in that frame of mind, I guess bringing it back to our world, you know, is it the possibility of, you know, acquiring a property to, I guess, add to your portfolio, to add more cash flow, etc., etc., or is it a necessity to acquire a house to live in? You know, we kind of got to, like, understand the mindset behind it all. But that is kind of basically how people move. They move. I probably move more towards possibilities as opposed. So if I was in somewhere getting sold, I am definitely sold on the possibility of something as opposed to it being an absolute necessity that I have something. And you know, you've got to put your services and your products in that frame of mind. So let's say essay management. So, you know, there's a possibility that, so I could say, right, Tom, there's a possibility that you're a possibility person. So I would talk about the upside game. By working with me, you get my experience. We'll more than likely uplift your revenue because we know what we're doing. We've got all the smoother systems in place. So we'll reduce your costs. Ultimately, you'll end up with a bigger net profit, blah, blah, blah. That if you were a possibility person, you'd be like, right, that sounds great. But if you're a necessity person, you'd be like, well, that's all well and good, but, you know, you haven't really talked about why they need to have that service. So you might change the words and you might say, right, Tom, I feel like you need this product because right now you're bleeding money out the back end by, you know, those cleans that you mentioned that you missed, having to shut the property off for a few days. And obviously your time management and maybe your systems are just not there yet. So you're actually losing money at the top end as well. So I feel like this is a real necessary solution for you to get more money into your business. So you see, we talked about the exact same service there, but in 2 total different ways to 2 total different people. And we have to understand what type of people they are by, again, asking good questions as you build and rapport. Number 4, we have matcher or mismatcher. So, you know, matchers they look for something that is similar to themselves. And and mismatchers obviously look for something that's different. So, well, it probably easier to just go through it. So sameness, these people see everything as the same. So to motivate them, you know, they relate product service something that's positive in the past experience. And the sameness with exception, these people see most things as the same, but with something different. To motivate them, show them how the product is like other things they've experienced and also how it's unique. Polarity and mismatches. So you'll have met plenty of people, whatever you say, they do the opposite, you know? So it's like, you know, the grass is green. No, it's not, it's blue. All right. Okay. Fair enough. You know? So, but to motivate them, you actually want to do the opposite of what they really want. And you can, you know, when you start getting into these type of situations and start, when you understand this and you go through it and you really hit it home, you start really watching people and then start understanding their language. And you know, and mismatches by counter example. So every time you suggest a possibility, these people will give you a counter example, and then to sell them, give them the counter examples before they have the chance. So you might say, you know, I might say, you know, my SA management system is, you know, I think the best out there. And if you're a mismatch by counter example, you might say, well, no, it's not, but this software is. So to combat that, I might say, well, I think my SA management software is the best, and you know, it covers X, Y, and Z, and that might be the same as the counter example that they might have come out with. So it's just about understanding who they are, matcher or mismatcher. Number 5, this is really important for what we do, especially, and this probably changes depending on the age of the person that you're talking to. So do they make distinctions based on their self, their others, or the details? So a lot of people are motivated by what's in it for them. A lot of people are motivated by what's in it for others and how they can potentially help others. And some people are just motivated by purely details and data. So they're not in it for them. They're not in it for somebody else. They're just in it for the numbers. And, you know, they will be, you know, sold by the numbers. So if we've got, say, a motivated seller who wants to sell us, you know, a block, or they want to sell us a unit, or, you know, whatever it might be, then we need to find out, right, are they wanting to sell this because they want the money for themselves? And you can kind of tell by how people talk as to whether they are, you know, in it for them or in it for others. So and if they're in it for the detail as well. So if it's the self, then they will talk about themselves quite a lot. They'll mention what they're going to do with the money. If they're an other type person, they'll more than likely talk about their family and how they're going to, you know, what it will do. I can, you know, if I get this money, I'm going to put my kids through private school or whatever it might be. Whereas the self person will be like, if I get this money, I'm more than likely going to buy myself this, or I'm going to go and do this with it, or whatever. And some people might just be like, you know, it's all about the numbers, you know, and you know, it's about the data, or, you know, it's about what I get out of it on the back end, you know. And I've just had that very recently with a purchase. I'm trying to get below market value. I'm trying to do a bit of a quirky deal, so I don't have to do the whole refinance thing. And he's very much just give me the numbers. I need to know what my capital gains tax is going to be. I need to know what this is going to be. I need to know what that's going to be. You know, he hasn't once asked about, it's not about himself. It's not about other. He just wants the detail. So, you know, I had to detail how it will all work, how the numbers all play out, and how we get to his end figure by the end of it all. You know, so very much a detailed person. And I can tell that by the questions that he was asking me about how does this work? How does that work? He's not sort of, you know, and I will ask him things like, you know, obviously it's the second house you've sold me. So, you know, what you're doing with the money, he'll quickly have a conversation with that, but then he always seems to bring it back to the details. So he is a detail type person. I knew that. So I then start talking numbers and data to him. And that's how we then move the ball further down the court. So a completion or a process type person. I am very much a completion person. You know, Christmas Day comes open, I get my new Lego set. I don't even bother with the manual. I just start building it, you know, whereas a process person will get the manual out, they'll lay all the pieces out, they'll have all the bags numbered, and they will go through it bit by bit by bit. And again, you got to understand what type of people, you know, are process people or completion people. So, you know, really, probably the easiest person, yeah, so probably the easiest way to understand that is kind of the Lego example. But, you know, are you a person that likes to just get things done, or do you like to be involved in the process of getting it done? You know, and that's an easy question that you can ask to kind of open that up. And number 7, convince a strategy. So, there's 2 steps from covering someone's convince strategy. Find out what kind of evidence it will take to convince them. So are they visual? Are they auditorial? Are they kinesthetic? Or are they digital? So i.e., do they like to see things, feel things, listen to things, or, see it on a computer screen? And how much time it will take, so are they a consistent person? Do they want to do things in blocks of time? Whatever it might be. It just really, you've got to understand how you're going to convince them. What is the strategy behind how you're going to convince them? There's no point ringing up a landlord that is a visual person and trying to explain to him how your service is the best in the world. Now you might need to do that to get on the viewing, but this hits home to where, I would, and I have actually done this in times, is when I've been on a viewing with the landlord, if I feel like they're not really, you can kind of tell when someone's not taking something in that you're saying to them. So what I will do is I'll get a bit of paper and I'll start demonstrating on a wall. I've actually written on someone's wallpaper before because, I was quite confident that we'd do the deal. And I was like, by the way, I'm going to take that down if we agree this. So would you mind if I'm writing it? He's like, no, that's fine. And actually wrote down, we do this, da, 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 da. And I could tell he was a visual person. So it's everybody is one of these, not everyone is everything, and very rarely everyone is everything. You are normally one. I am definitely a visual. I like to draw stuff down and explain stuff through drawings, albeit very messy drawings, but it gets the point across to me anyway. And whereas, for example, listening to this audio book doesn't have as much impact as reading this document and looking at things. For me, I quite switch off listening to audio books at times, and I go into a daze, I start doing something else. Whereas I come back and I read stuff and I'm like, right, I can start picturing it in my head. I start visually seeing how this plays out with certain scenarios. So everyone's different though. There's no point drawing something down for somebody that's an auditory person. They just want to hear it. What are the facts? What are the, what is it that you're telling me? Number 8, generality or specificity. So, do you want the big picture or do you want the details? A bit like the sort of process or the sort of just completion type person. Do you just want, in general, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you? Or do you want us to tell you exactly how I'm going to do this, how it's going to benefit you, and go down to the finer detail? So again, you can ask that by simple question there. Do you want the big picture or do you just want the details? And then whatever answer they give you, just give us the big picture. And you just fine, well, they're just a general person and you just need to give them the basis. Or they might say, no, I want the details. And a bit like the gentleman I'm dealing with on this potential HMO purchase, he is a specificity type person. Past or future. So very easy one, this. Do they make decisions based on past performance or do they make decisions based on future possibilities? And if a person that's focused on the past needs to have that trust, they want to see that it's been in operation for a long time. They want to, they really want to probably do the homework and know that it's proven. Whereas a future person will focus on the future possibilities and they're not really that bothered what's happened in the past. So this is where, a lot of people say, oh, well, I've not done anything in property before, so why would anyone want to work with me? Well, if you stumble across a future style based landlord or JV partner, they're not bothered what's gone on in the past. They're just looking forward. Well, okay, right. What your service is going to do X, Y, and Z for me in the future. So they're going to be more inclined to work with somebody that hasn't got much past experience. Whereas if you come across somebody that is a sort of past style person, then you probably will hit a roadblock because they're going to be like, well, I need you to prove to me what's gone on and how you've done this in the past. So, and we're all very much different, and you don't know who you're going to stumble across, but hopefully this is starting to show you that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And if you can, like, you might hit a past landlord and you've got no experience and you've just got absolutely no chance. You really have got no chance. You're going to have to try and come up with a different strategy to try and get them closed. Whereas if they're a future type person, and you're going to say, right, I'm going to rent your property from you. You're going to do this. You're going to have no voids for 5 years, da, da, da. He's thinking of the possibilities ahead. And he's like, right, fine, let's do it. He'll probably not even ask you about what's gone on previously. So, you know, and this is why you can get into property without having to have experience. Cost or convenience. So what's more important to you, you know, that this service is cost effective or that it makes things easier for you. And you will be surprised, but most, well, probably you might not be surprised, but most people, I think the stats, something like 80% of people are convenience people. They just want the easy life. They're not bothered if it costs them some money. If you dig deep with somebody, you know, a great example of this is I've literally just completed on my development this afternoon, about 10 minutes before I logged on to this. We agreed a price several months ago. They were getting a bit fed up with, you know, how long the planning was taking and how long the whole thing was taking. So I offered them a lower price to just deal now. They're obviously a convenience type person. They're not that bothered about the, you know, I've got an extra 20 grand off the building. They're not that bothered about that. They'd rather just be, right, okay, done with that. They don't have to deal with the solicitors. They want the easy life and they just want the money now. You know, so they're very much a convenience people, like most people are. So stop. And this is where, like, you can really understand that it's not all about price. You know, it's not all about price. It is very much around convenience and making things easy for yourselves, making things easy for others. And, you know, we do it as we scale, right? You know, we stop setting up our own SA units because, well, we'd rather just pay someone to do it. So it's more convenient for us. You know, so really important that we understand these 10, I guess, ways to influence others. And when you do really understand how to influence other people, then, you know, you will improve your close ratios. You'll improve, obviously, the cash flow, the number of acquisitions, etc., etc. So, so I just thought that was worth sharing tonight, something that I'm sort of revisiting myself right now. And I think it's very topical. So I thought I'd share it. And I guess open the floor up to any questions that anyone's got around that. If anyone has any. So I will post this in Kajabi and I'll tag the document in there so everyone can kind of have a read through it.
It's a lot to kind of figure out from a sometimes brief conversation with the landlord. You know, sometimes your conversations aren't that in depth, are they?
I think it comes down to good questioning, doesn't it? So you kind of got, I do know what you mean. Like, you know, some of them are very, like, you know, 1-2 second questions and you know, you don't really get anywhere. But again, this is about opening people up and having that rapport and asking good questions to people. And I think if you do that, then you do get the information that you need. I think you can tell a lot of these things by just, you know, I think I said to Louise today, it's about just getting out there right now. There's no good or bad sort of conversation. There's no good or bad view. And it's just about exploring what objections you're going to get thrown at you, what works, what doesn't work. And then you kind of refine your process a bit more. But even like I could go out and totally miss the boat on someone. And, you know, even as much as how the speed that you talk, like if I talk very fast, so someone else that talks fast, we'll probably hit it off quite quickly. Whereas if someone talks like this and then I go in and I'm like, bang, 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 they're going to be a bit like, you know, so sometimes you got to like even adjust your body language and adjust the way you're speaking to people to match what they are like, because then they resonate more with you and they'll open up more. So, you know, it's really important that you start understanding these skill sets. Sales is a skill set and you've got to just constantly be trying to make it better and better and better. And these are just some small little wins that you can go out with, and you just, you know, have, you know, the best thing to do is, you know, I'll put this document in Kajabi for you and just go through the 10 and just like create 10 questions that you could potentially ask to try and find out what type of person they are. You might only need to ask 2 or 3. You don't need to know all 10, you know. They might just, okay, right, they're a past or a future person, you know, they're you know, they either chase possibilities or they're trying to run away from scarcity of losing something. You know, you can quite easily figure that out by, you know, I've been on many viewings before where I've gone in direct to vendor and they're so scared and timid And I'm like, you can just tell instantly that they fear being a landlord because of, you know, you dig into it and you're like, why? Well, I've inherited this property and I just don't want to be a landlord. And, you know, and I'm like, oh, is it, you know, you're just scared of me having to pay the mortgage. And if you've got no tenant, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly it. You can tell they're a fear-based person. So there's no point me telling them all about the possibilities of X, Y, and Z and talking about how much money they can have from the sale. I'm better off sort of leveraging that and saying, yeah, I totally get it. You know, I have voids in my property all the time and it's not a nice feeling and this, that, and the other, but I'll take away that pain for you. I'll give you your price now. I can complete in 3 weeks. I'll cash buy it, da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, great, because the next mortgage payment will be due in 4 weeks' time. So, you know, it's kind of like you're taking away that pain. Whereas you might go in there and someone's like, oh, I don't really need to sell this, but, you know, I quite fancy buying that boat in Spain and blah, blah, blah. So then you start going, right, well, I can make that happen for you. Let's do a deal and let's get you on the water, you know, as quick as we possibly can. So it's understanding what people say to you. And I think the great thing about sales is if you are talking more than 20% of the time, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because you should be asking a good question and sitting back and listening to all the information. And then from that information, asking the next best question. And all the time, you basically, you start here and you're just pushing them into that corner by asking the right questions all the time. And by the end of it, they're closed, you know? So it's about opening people up as well and building that rapport. And as I said, getting on with them. So you can tell a lot from how you meet someone and how they instantly talk to you. And you can tell a lot over the phone as well. Although in person, and this is why I like to get in person a lot, is I think with body language and again, the visual sort of audio type thing, you can't, you know, like I hate emails because for one, it clogs the email inbox up and takes loads of time up. But that, apart from that, all four of us could read an email totally different in terms of tonality. You know, Lois might think, what a dick he is. And Louise might think, oh, he came across quite well. And Tom might think, God, he's motivational. And I might just think he's average, you know, all from the same sentence, just the way we read it. And that could even be the mood we're in when we read that email, you know, whereas your voice and your body language, you can't really hide that. And you know exactly what's being given off. And then you can use that as fuel to then push them in the way that you need to go. Cool. Any questions? It's probably just a case of getting stuck into that, I think, and kind of just figuring out your own questions and figuring out your own way of learning it, and then how you can start playback scenarios of, okay, well, my last viewing I went on was with what type of person? Last estate agent I rang was with what type of person? And then just go, right, well, what could I have done better? Okay, I misjudged them. Maybe that person, I should have asked that question and not that question. Or I should have pushed that pain point, not explained that benefit, you know, and leveraged it more, because everyone's totally different. And, you know, throw that in the mix.
I rang an estate agent today. I had my first attempt. It was the one that rang yesterday that I rang back and did what he said and said, oh, I'm an investor, I'm doing a couple of projects in Scarborough and I'm looking for properties all the time, below market value or motivated sellers or projects that need refurbs, that kind of thing. And I said, we also look for rentals. And I said, and when I got onto rentals, I tried to explain, you know, I sort of said it we do long-term lets. Is that how you would say it? Yeah.
To an extent, we work with contractors up and down the UK.
Yeah, I said we work with contractors, leisure and business, and tried to sell it fairly casually, but you know, I did try and explain it, and he just kind of went, oh right, let me just check, and he just checked and came back and said, oh no, we don't do that.
Yeah. What I would dig in, did you ask him why?
No.
So, like for me, like the next part of it,
the rain outside as well, but
the next part of this program with Tony Robbins is about conviction. If you are not convinced yourself, you're never going to be able to convince anybody, right? So you've just got it, like, and I'll say this time and time again, if I explain our rental service to someone and they say, we're not interested in that, we're going to take a tenant on, I'm like, right, okay, let's just pause here. I've obviously miscommunicated something with you, because anyone that really fully understands this service knows that this is far better than an AST for, you know, I either go into, you know, the money, the less hassle, again, depending on what type of person they are, you know, and you go into those benefits. I tend to go into most of them. But, you know, I'm like, because I'm so convinced myself that it is the best service that they can possibly ever have. You know, when an estate agent say they don't do it, I'll say, well, why don't you do it? You know, and then you want, oh, it's subletting. Well, it's not actually subletting, you know, and let me tell you why it's not. And let me share some examples how it's worked really well with estate agents, not with the landlord. They don't care about the landlord. They care about themselves.
You need to show me a do a role play. Do a role play with Tom.
Yeah, no, I think with agents as well. With agents, you do get subletting quite a lot, and then it's more than likely that's it's a head office decision, or it's a higher above the chain decision. You know, so but you shouldn't accept that. You know, don't accept no ever. So you say, okay, could you just explain to me why? Because I am working with other agents and it's fine with them. So obviously it must be fine with you. I think maybe we just haven't communicated that properly, and then they'll more than likely stutter on the phone a bit, because they've had a bit of a pushback, but they'll get in. And then I even go as far as, is there any chance I could just speak to your manager or your owner, you know, just so I can explain who I am, how we're working with agents like you, how I'm putting more commission in, you know, back pockets of people like yourself, and how I'm making agencies more money over the long term, you know, and you kind of, because that's how they're motivated.
Agents, do they probably worry that they would look, you know, if it's that good for the landlord, then they won't need the agent anymore?
Well, yeah, I think there is a bit of that, but then that's where we come from a different position. We say, you know, you can charge us fees, we can pay you a retainer, we can pay you an annual renewal fee, whatever it is, because there's so much uplift in SA that we can afford to do that. But again, it's if you just accept we don't do that, you're never getting the chance to explain that, you know, and that's where I go with the conviction that this is the best service for you, and I won't stop, and I want to speak to the manager, and and another good tip is, try and hone in on smaller agencies rather than the big corporates.
Well, this was quite a small one, actually.
So the best thing to do is ring that agency at probably 5:30 at night, because I guarantee you the owner of the agency will pick up the phone, not one of the staff that's legged out the door at 5 o'clock. So you're more than likely going to end up having a more sensible conversation with the owner of the agency, and then you explain the benefits, or you pop in late on at night, 5:15 as they're locking up, and just be like, you know, hey, can I just catch you for 5 minutes, you know, and blah blah blah. So, but get more conviction in yourself, you know, and that'll come with confidence of understanding more about what it's doing and how it's working. But volume of activity will also help breed the confidence. So, you know, it's probably whatever, if it's 99 phone calls to get a yes, well, you've now only got 98 to make, you know. So it's like, you know, you're one closer, and it is just you know, testing it and moving with it. But you've got to be convinced yourself that it's the best service. You've got
to do it to get better at it, haven't you?
Yeah. And no one, what's the worst that can happen? You know, you go in, I think you develop a story's great. I think you did everything right there. What you probably did, I would imagine, without even listening to the call, you probably went in with high conviction of being a developer. You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that. And then your voice will have dropped. And I also do renter, you know, and then you're waiting for that. And I can imagine that's probably how the flow of that conversation went. And they'll probably picked up on that as well, you know, whereas, you know, I would have been like, or you could have even pivoted back to kind of like, we don't do that. And then you could have been like, all right, no problem. Well, what have you got on your books at the minute that's kind of below market value, or I can add an extension to, or whatever, and get them to build that rapport with. And then I'd go back and just be like, just coming back to the question before, you mentioned you don't do the rental sort of side of things. Just wondering why, because I do work with many estate agents in the area, and they, you know, I'm working with them. You can even give some examples and and then they'll, you know, you're putting them on the spot, and then you're still building the rapport all the time, and just looking at different avenues with them, because they're only focused on one thing, which is making money. So we've got to make them understand we can make money.
You ever find that landlords, if they have got an SA, a rent through an agent, that they'll just see that the rent to renter is paying the agent money every month, just Nice. Like the agent don't really have to do anything, do they? So does the landlord then think, well, I might as well just let them pay direct to me?
Well, yeah, no, I think that is one of the reasons agents don't like to connect rent to rent is because they do feel in the long term they'll get cut out, because they probably will. I mean, like every single rent to rent deal that we take on through an agent, we'll send a welcome letter to the landlord just saying, hey, just let you know we're your new tenant, and you know you're in good hands here. This is who we are, blah blah. Oh, by the way, if you've got any more properties, this is my mobile number. You know, and then they're going to be like, hi, yeah, let's do a deal, and you know, and what have you. So, you know, yeah, they will end up, but that's where you've got to. So you've got to get those objections out the way straight up, you know, and you'd be like, you know, we typically work with you, so we put you on. I've got some agents on retainers. They get a monthly percentage of the gross revenue that we achieve through the buildings. Right. You know, I pay them an annual renewal fee. So it all ends up more than they see. When I am working with when I'm working with the commercial real estate agents, I want to always try and talk to the owner, because you can try and then get quirky deals on the go. It's not always as straightforward as like say a simple BRR. But the reason agents don't want to connect people is because they're fearful that you're going to get them down to a really low price, and therefore they're not the middleman to keep their commission high. So what I say to them is, I say, listen, if you put us together, because I want to explain a way that I can do it that suits us all, whatever I discount from, say, the 400 grand purchase value. So if I get it for 300 grand by speaking them direct and doing it my way, I will pay you the top up commission of the 100K that you're losing out on. So if your fee's 2%, the 100K difference that I've chipped them, I'll pay you that 2% commission on that 100K, and they'll pay you the 300K. Now they are more motivated to work with me, because now they know if I do a deal, they're going to get their full commission that they could ever get. And not many people are doing that. So, you know, you come in and say, I've offered 300K, then the next, so you come and say that, he's always thinking back in mind, well, if I get Ryan a deal on this, he's getting me an extra 2% on the 100K. So who's he more interested in dealing with? You know, and they end up putting you together, and you never cut those type of agents out, and you can work with them, you know, a lot, and it works really well. You can do the same with estate agents and real estate, with rental agents and small BRR type agents and stuff as well, just to try and say, can I speak to the landlord direct? And I'll tell you what, I will pay you X based on, you know, XYZ, you know, and just make them feel like they're never going to lose out. And then they're more interested to put you direct and have a conversation. So, yeah. Cool. Any more questions? No. Cool. We've been through quite a lot there. So I'll get this uploaded as Kajabi, and I'll put it in the one of the sales sections, and then I'll tag that document in as well, and then you can read it. That's actually the full program. So you can read through that. Just don't post it anyway, because I'm sure Tony Robbins has probably got some copyrights on infringement somewhere, and I don't want to end up in a lawsuit with him. But yeah, just keep it in Kajabi if you can. And I will see you on I think Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. We've got the next session, but I'll keep you updated on Voxer anyway. Alrighty. Cool. See you later. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.